All right. So, wanted to make this video, kind of talk about, a segment of what's that, basically like, what's that? And not a lot of people, I guess not a lot of folks really understand what really is true about certain things and what isn't true and how to decipher those things between what is or isn't a fact or isn't fiction. So one of the best ways that I've learned to do this is to apply the scientific method. If you don't know what that is, I do suggest Googling it. It's a much easier thing for you to read on your own than for me to explain it here. Because each person understands things on their own way and at their own level. And I think if you take the time out to yourself to learn what the scientific method is by yourself, then you would learn it a little faster than I would explain it. So rummaging through the details of what's that ology, basically, is there's been a lot of discussion about, New Age, quote unquote, New Age religion and New Age theology, that it's New Age anything, when the truth is precisely the opposite. New Age thinking or New Age things like Buddha, or I should say the, Wicca or pagan theology is all old, very much older than Christianity. So really when Christians call that stuff New Age, they're kind of, they sound a little ignorant to me, because the New Agey kind of stuff is not New Age at all. The more appropriately named Christianity should be called New Age, because it is newer than the rest of it, historically. Now, whether it's more accurate to the truth, I'm not going to go into a whole deep discussion on that, because I don't think that it's, I don't think it's necessary to strike up a whole conversation based off Christianity and try to explain away the rest of it, because it's to each their own. You have free will. Make up your own dang mind. If you want to be a Buddhist, that's on you. If you want to be a pagan, that's also on you. If you want to be a Wiccan, that's on you. Just understand those religions and those theologies and those practices that are other than Christianity. Not all of them are, I guess, as organized as Christianity, but the older they are, usually the more organized they are. And then Buddhism is one of the ones that's more organized. The same with the art of the neo-pagan or pagan theology, or pagan way of thinking, and same with the Wicca. It's basically held on a predilection of dark and light, and understanding of that good and evil is one of the things that got us thrown out of Eden, something that we took from the tree of knowledge, good and evil, earlier than we were supposed to. So we learned some things about hate that we weren't supposed to learn at an early age. Thus the age of innocence, being born into damnation for all children, something like that. Everyone is born into damnation, which is kind of a negative worldview, I think, and it's also leaning more towards the evil side of things. But it's better to understand that each person contains the tendency for both good and bad, or for lack of better terms, good and evil, or right and wrong. But in some cases, those definitions are not very clear, so it's very hard for people to understand them. Right versus wrong is often, in some cases, based on your perception of what's right and what's wrong, and some people's perception is skewed. So to put it more aptly, okay, what is love and what is hate? Those are very easy ways to describe this thing, and a much simpler way of making it easier to understand. If you're a white witch or you practice the art of white Wicca, then you're unbalanced, which is not good. But there are things we can do that can balance out the karmic lust for humanity, that can balance out the evil, because necessary evils like taking life for food and things like that are necessary evils that balances out the good and the bad in some ways. I think that you can also say certain chants and or prayers, which is why a lot of Christians pray over their food, is to make sure it's clean no matter what they do, that there's some divine entity sprinkling, good luck dust over their food, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, I'm not saying that to demean anyone. I'm saying that there's a lot of views and different views on the art of blessings and things like that. So studying the white end or light end or love part of Wicca is kind of one-sided. You get a one-sided view of things if you only study one side of it. But if you want to only follow good or bright or light or love logic, then that's only one side of the spectrum, and you need a balance. So understanding there's a balance that needs to be met, the necessity of evil in your life occurs at the taking of life for your sustainment. So killing a cow to eat beef, you just murdered a cow. So every time you eat a burger, you're killing it, you took part in it. That's a necessary evil. That balances out your dark karma. Okay. Another thing that balances out dark karma is disciplining a child. It's also viewed as good in some ways. In some ways, in some simpler ways, I guess that would be considered just good or love, because it's tough love, as it's been termed before. But there's a fine line between tough love and abuse, so be careful with that. Also, we do well to understand to look at love as it is. Love is the existence of all good, all light, all life is good. God created light and created darkness, and created light amid the darkness and called the light day and the darkness night, and the first day was made. So in a sense, that was the beginning of it. Basically, the delineation and separation between the two is a clear and concise definition of dark and light. You understand that light is good, dark is just dark. So the predilection of darkness equated to evil is just it's a misnomer, and it's a misrepresentation of the actual facts. Okay, so just because you see someone walking around wearing all black does not mean they're an evil person. And someone that walks around in a nice suit with a really cute tie on and a very good GQ haircut, they could be the most evil person you will ever meet, and you would not know it from looking at them. So those are just examples. I know that there's several permutations of how people act and react in certain given situations in all forms. So those are just examples of what could occur at the extremes, because there was a show that was on TV for quite a while that had a few seasons that I was very fond of, called the IT Crowd. And there was a person on that show named Richmond, a character rather, that was locked in the server room. That was a Gothic person. And they had no more no more comical error in that show than how they portrayed Goths in culture. And that was a pretty comedic version or portrayal of the Gothic people, which was, in some cases, I think, pretty accurate. But I don't think all of us are that way, because I myself am a Gothic person, near and dear to my soul, and I don't appear that way all the time, but it's because it's a very expensive lifestyle. And if any one of you out there know what I'm talking about, you know what I mean. So the clothes we wear as Gothic people are very, very stylish, but also very, very expensive. So be that as it may, the explanation of what's that between good and evil is simply, if you lead with nothing but love in your heart, you will obtain only good things. That's not true. If you lead with love in your heart and you do only good things, you're still subject to evil things happening in your life, because that's Murphy's Law. Anything that can happen will. Doesn't necessarily mean it's inherently good or bad. It just means your perception of it may be taken good or bad based on your actions. But that's also following closely with karma, that your karmic energy or your kasha or your chi, those things have an impact on your karma. It's so believed. But I don't think that it's an actual 100% connection. I think that everything, if you have, all in all, if you are perceptively a good person and a loving person, and if you do view things in a karmic fashion, and you lead with nothing but love in your heart, and you hate no one, because hate is the ultimate sin. If you lead with nothing but love in your heart and you hate no one, then you can conquer anything. You can come across any level of evil and conquer it. You can smite the unsmiteable. You can move past the inevitable demise of someone else, and you would be the one to survive it, because you have to lead with love in your heart, because that was the true intention of this life. We learned about hate too early, and learned about evil or whatever too early. We weren't ready for it, and it's tainted our very existence to the core of who humanity is and what we are. So, with that being said, the balance of light and dark is attained through the necessary evils in life that you must do, but doing those things that you must do, also do them through the lens of love, and there can be no hate contained within. So even if those things that other people contend are done with nothing but the heart of evil, you can also turn those events to good. So what can we do to stem the tide of any sort of tyranny that may come or go in our culture? The best way to understand that is to know that absolute control of the government that controls society is wrong. We can see that panning out already in places like Switzerland and China. Those are not good examples of how society is supposed to run under, utopian-esque kind of laws, because that's just not how things occur when you control someone's day down to their very action in which to choose that's pleasing or displeasing based on one person's point of view, or a social credit score, so to speak. It's not a very good way of living. I mean, it's highly accountable for the public, but what's to stop them from being tyrants? What's to stop them from doing anything they want, regardless of who you are? You can be the best person on the planet and make one mistake, or be an active detective, or someone who is out for the truth and love and finds only hate and then tries to report that. And then suddenly you're under house arrest effectively in your own city, and you can't go anywhere outside your own town. You can't even travel once they blacklist you like this. Take a look at that video I posted a couple weeks ago on my Facebook page, a couple days ago actually, about the social credit scores in China. That's a very appalling thing that's happening, and it's occurring to people like you and me that are locked into that country, that can't leave, especially now, that had no choice in the matter. It happened to them. So we need to do some thinking here in America. We as Americans owe it to our citizenry and the world to do some thinking of how to lead by example. And one of the best ways to lead by example is to lead with nothing but love in your heart, as Jesus did. I mean, that's the only example I got to lead with love in your heart. I mean, other than Buddha, of course, also lead with love in your heart. And the same with any good religious practice. I think it's safer to say that if you just lead with love in your heart, that you have the best intentions, garnering that you think that the individual is sovereign, then I would agree with you on that path, that we could all move forward together as individuals and as a whole as humanity. Now, that's the only way moving forward in the future, is to govern everyone as an individual, but move together forward as a whole. It's achievable. We just have to work hard at it. It's not easy because we've fallen prey to socialism and fascism and communism and all the other isms that are bad in our country and our world. We've fallen prey to these ideologues all too quickly and all too frequently in our past. We get lazy in our determination of what's right and what's wrong, and we often let other people decide those things. Well, it's time that we stand up for ourselves, and it's time that we fight for what's right and lead with nothing but love in your heart, and you can't go wrong. That's it.